So with that, I am so excited to chat with Mandy Gefle. Mandy is the owner of Pura Vida Nutrition, and she has had quite a phenomenal journey of her own. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, Mandy, but what the burning question that I have is, you used to be a registered nurse. That was your background. And now you've shifted to owning your own business and focusing on nutrition. What happened? How did that transition happen for you? How did that come about?
Thank you for asking. A lot of people ask me that. They're like, what, like you're a nurse though, but then why are you, and how does that lead into owning your own business? And I got to tell you, not super easily. First of all, although for many people who are in the holistic wellness field, it was actually my own illness that really shifted me, and it was circumstances of my own illness and how I wanted to go forward with treatment that actually got my mind more open into complementary healing. And I'm just so glad that it did. When I was what became my journey was basically a Y in the road. I had to make a choice. And it wasn't necessarily the choice that most people thought I was going to make, although it really did serve me well in the end. And so a little bit about my story is what started my health journey was my struggle with postpartum depression. And so it wasn't the first time that I struggled with depression. Looking back now, I realized that I struggled with depression in my teen years, although there was a lot leading up to it was kind of a perfect storm, which really had an upheaval in my life. And so basically I was a new mom leading up to my delivery with my son. I was working in the hospital pretty much full time or over full time. I was working days and night shift. I never said no. I always wanted to help people out. And so that's basically what led up to my delivery process. And then my delivery process was somewhat traumatic as well. It took, I went into labor on a Sunday, and I finally had my son on a Thursday morning. So it was extraneous, to say the least. It was a very long process. And that essentially just kind of led up to me not sleeping hardly at all, having a new baby, being a new mom. And I very quickly got into this space in my mind where I was just essentially telling myself, like, my son and my husband are just better off without me. They're just better off without me around, right? And so that's what led up to me just making this choice of, okay, how am I going to get myself out of this? It's very interesting because when you're in the nurse mindset, like, I'm the person that people come to for help with this stuff. And here I am in the center of it and losing myself in it. And I don't know what to do. Right. And so it shows me that when we are in the thick of it, essentially, we're not necessarily our own best person to help ourselves. It's really great to have a community and people around you who care about you, who are willing to kind of step up and support you in that. And so that's essentially what my husband did. We were fighting a lot. Like I said, I was exhausted. I was completely overwhelmed. I was in a space where I was hearing from a lot of people that like how excited and happy I should be with everything that's going on in my life. And I wasn't. And so one night me and my husband, we were fighting again, and things kind of came to a head. And I remember him looking at me, and I know that he loves me. Like, he's a great man. He's a very supportive husband. And I remember him just looking at me, just being like, you know what? I love you more than anything in the world, although I know that you're not okay. And I feel like you need to get professional help. And so it's tough for me to even talk about it now, because I just remember feeling the love that was coming through, although once again, just not knowing what I should do. I went to my doctor, and it was at my doctor's appointment where I actually hit that Y in the road of like, okay, what am I going to do? My son was only about 4 months old at this time. I was still breastfeeding him. And when I went to my doctor offered me a a prescription for antidepressants. And not that I have anything against antidepressants at all whatsoever. I think that they're a really great tool in certain circumstances. Although I asked him, like, is there anything else that we can try? Like anything else that you can suggest, anything else that I can kind of utilize before we go there? I feel like I would like some more steps in between before I kind of go down that road, because that's a very long, confusing road as well. And he said, well, no, not really. Like you're in this industry too, and I feel like your resources are just as good as mine. So that's pretty much it. One of the biggest decisions that I had to make as far as the prescription goes is I would have had to stop breastfeeding my son in order to start taking them. And so that was one of the biggest blocks for me, is like, I wasn't ready to do that yet. And so that's kind of what set me on this path. And it was what I learned from there and the resources that I gained from there that really got me on this journey of realizing that what we put in our body matters so much for the results that we gain out of our body, right? Like our energy, our sleep cycles, our hormone cycles, everything depends so much on what we put in our body. And basically through my healing journey, that just really, really hit home. And the more I got into it, the more I got curious about it, and the more I got passionate about it. And so now I'm at the point now where I actually call it postpartum depletion instead of postpartum depression, because I learned from that basically I just needed to put in more building blocks. My body was just completely empty. So that's what kind of started me switching over.
So tell us a little bit about what you experienced through the postpartum depression or depletion. Take us through a day in the life of Mandy during that time. Were there good days and bad days, or were there bad days and worse days? Like, what did that look like for you?
Sometimes there were some good days, although honestly what it was is the Mandy that I was showing other people wasn't matching the Mandy on the inside. Like when I looked in the mirror, I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like me at all. I didn't feel like myself in my own body. I knew that I was in a very dark place in my mind. And so going through the day-to-day things, what we need to understand is when we're moms, especially first-time moms, everything in your life changes. It like spins on a dime, everything different, right? Nothing is the same as it was before. And you're kind of living in the interest of somebody else, right? As a new mom. And so I did the things that I needed to do, like as far as like going to family things, or as far as showing off the new baby and doing the baby shower and everything. I did all of those things and I went through the motions. I was just honestly so tired. And I felt like I couldn't think. Like, I don't know if anybody here has heard of mom brain. Yeah. And I just felt like there was a blockage. And so like some of the fights that me and my husband would have literally boiled down to, I thought I told him something or asked him to do something and he didn't do it because I didn't actually ask him to do it. I just couldn't remember. I literally could not remember. And so it's almost like these fights would erupt just because I had it in my mind that it went one way, although it didn't actually go that way. So a day in the life of Mandy is Mandy actually hid this all really, really well, because Mandy has a history of depression, right? And so it was just that I really wasn't feeling like myself. And I got lost in my own mind. I really had myself talked into the fact that my family is just better off without me in it. It's better off without me in it. And there are, like, I would get scared sometimes too, because I was home alone a lot with a baby, although I was really, really tired too. And so like silly little mistakes, I would really beat myself up for it. Right. And so, yeah, just kind of going through life in a fog and not really feeling like me at all.
Right. And so you got to this fork in the road and you knew you needed some sort of help, and you had to make some very difficult decisions. What next? Where did you start when you decided to, continue breastfeeding your baby and not take antidepressants? Where did you turn? Where did you find the resources that you needed to really kickstart this journey for you?
Well, first of all, what I did when I left that appointment with my doctor, I told my doctor, like, basically, I'm just going to have to take a rain check with you. And I need to look into some of the stuff. I need to figure it out. One of the reasons that I was so resistant to stopping breastfeeding my son is because that part was actually going really well. And I knew from working in labor and delivery for years prior to that, that oxytocin, it's a hormone that gets released when you do breastfeed your kids. And it's like a happy love hormone. And so that's pretty much the best that I felt. It was when I was breastfeeding my son. And that's part of because of the hormone cycle that we go through when that was happening. And so I really did not want to let that go. And so I went back out to the vehicle and my husband was with me at the appointment. And I basically just, like, I said, you know what, I would like your support. I don't want to do what he's suggesting and I don't know what I'm going to do. Is there any way that you can, like, I know that you've been so supportive to this point. Can you continue to be supportive through this journey while we kind of work it out? Like, are you open to something else? And when he agreed that, yes, he was open to something else and we would work on it together, like, I was honestly just so grateful because I felt like I had done so many things already to, like, drive him away from me. So that was my first step. And then my second step was I just started looking. Like, I pulled out my Google box like a lot of people do. And I just started looking for resources, like any resources that came up. And I found a naturopath, a doctor of naturopathic medicine. And she specialized actually in menopause. Like, when women go through menopause, she specialized in hormone balance in that respect. Although I really admired her credentials. And I felt, honestly, it was almost like an intuitive connection. You know how sometimes you can, like, be looking for something particular and you scroll through a list of names. I did this with a psychologist once too, when I went and got counseling. I, like, scrolled through a list of names and just kind of, I was able to stop and, like, connect with one. And I'm like, you know what, this is the one, this is what I'm going to do. And so, that's what I did. I started there and she had this whole big Rolodex of things of, like, okay, this is what we need to do first. This is what you need to do second. This is what you need to do first or third. And she just really helped me to support my adrenal health, which got me sleeping again. And so once I started the journey, and once I got sleeping again, man, that changed a whole lot for me, right? After that, that's when I was like, oh, and then I got really curious, right? And that's when I started to get really passionate. Although sometimes it's just finding that one person that can support you and can say, you know what, you don't have to do all the things, just do a couple of these things. And let's start there, right?
Right. And is that something that you now do with your clients? Is that where do you start them? Because you've gone on this beautiful journey of finding this way to help people. For those people out there who might need that first step, how do they get started?
On a phone call. Really, honestly, really, I just want to hear your story. And I think that that's why it's so important. And something that I noticed significantly different between when I went into my doctor, which I have a great doctor, that appointment that I had with him when he offered me the prescription was like 10 minutes tops. 10 minutes, I have no other ideas, right? Where my first appointment with my naturopathic doctor was an hour and a half. And honestly, I sat there, she held my baby and I just sobbed for, like, pretty much the whole time. I'm really grateful to her. And that's the difference, right? She was willing to hear my story and she dug beneath the surface. Okay. So she understood that, yes, like, me and my husband were fighting as a result of this. I was exhausted. I didn't know how to mom yet. And I felt like I was failing pretty much the entire time. She dug below that and she she pulled out other traumas that were happening at the same time. A lot of people don't realize this about depletion or adrenal fatigue or burnout. It's not when your life meets one thing that knocks you down. It's when you have these major stressors in your life that start stacking and stacking and stacking. I had recently lost an uncle to cancer very young and did some of his palliative care. But there were quite a number of things that kind of led up to that situation in me. And so she dug below the surface. And so in my practice, that's what I thrive to do, because somebody listened to me without judgment and just with their whole heart, and allowed me to share my story and feel safe in that. And so that's what I strive to do for my clients, is to listen to their story without judgment, regardless of where their path has led previous, because come right down to it, that person is here because they want some help, and they really just want some love and acceptance along their journey. And so that's how I start out with my clients, is we get on a phone call and we talk. Like, I want to know what your goals are. I want to know what you're struggling with right now, because it's in sharing your story that you can start to take control of it. That's when you become the author of your story, and you get to decide where it leads from there, instead of being a victim to what's kind of happened in the past. That's what I've come to learn from my own experience.
Absolutely, taking responsibility for your own health and well-being. So one last question here before we get to the Q&A. When we talk about stressors and all of those little things that build up, what can you leave our guests with? What can you leave our audience with? Do you have a single tip or a tool or technique that's kind of your go-to thing when you just are feeling that overwhelm? We all know what it's like in the world today, and everybody's dealing with all kinds of stress. What's one thing that we can do to just help with that?
Oh my gosh. Just honestly, just stop, just let it stop. And actually, I'm doing a workshop on this next month. And basically, it's just, it takes practice. Although being in the awareness that like things are coming at me too fast, I'm in a stress state. I'm kind of anxiety sneaks up on you. It starts in the hands, right? And then it moves up and it kind of takes over your brain. So just being able to stop, take a deep breath, and then shift by being grateful to yourself for having the awareness. So I always say the first step, once you're aware that this is taking over, you thank yourself for becoming aware, right? That's the first step to kind of shifting your brain, because you're working from a different place in your brain when you're in that stress state than when you're in more of a relaxation mode. And your focus really narrows when you're in that stress state, because it's fight or flight. We've all heard those words together. Your focus narrows, you have no creativity, and you're really just looking for the way out. And so the moment you can kind of stop, take a deep breath, say thank you for being aware, like thank yourself for being aware, it starts to open up the different parts of your brain so that you can bring yourself back from it. And once you kind of get to that place where you're working from a different place in your brain, I say reach out to somebody in your support network and just talk it out, right? Just talk it out.
Absolutely. Gratitude has been such an important part of my journey for sure. So I love that you shared that. Mm-hmm. If you have any questions for Mandy, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll remind you to put them in capital letters so that we can recognize those quickly. In the meantime, while people are putting those questions in, Mandy, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you? And is there something that you're offering our audience today?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to offer a call. Actually, I can drop the link in the comments, and that's the best way for people to get in touch with me right now, is just jump on the phone with me. I offer so it's a free kind of 30-minute call. Usually it takes longer than that, and that's okay, for me to hear your story and see if we'll be a good fit. I didn't really talk a whole lot about what I actually do now. So I have a ridiculously long title that nobody likes to say. It's licensed holistic nutrition practitioner. In other provinces, I would be referred to as a nutritionist. Although I've really been able to kind of amalgamate my previous knowledge and education with what I've learned from advancing my education into nutrition. And so I do a lot of mindset work with people. I'm just kind of stretching into the energy world. So I do a little bit of energy work and intuitive work with people. I can tell you, like, I can get right down to the basics of refueling your body. And so making sure that you're eating in a way that supports the health of your body, supports the health of your immune system, and also some supplementation. So I can suggest certain supplements, because sometimes that's a shortcut to just really getting you to the place of like, yes, I'm sleeping. Yes, I got energy again. I feel like I can take that on, extending your resilience. And I do attract a lot of people with previous diagnosis just because I do have medicine in my background. So I'm not working under my nursing title, although I still have the education. And so I've been able to kind of combine all of my previous experience to create a bridge between I guess, traditional medical field and then also complementary, just to really support people in their journey and what they need now. So yeah,
right.
Jump in my calendar for a free call, and we can definitely chat it out and see where you're at right now.
Thank you. That's such a beautiful offer. So we have a question from Brittany. What would you say are the top 3 no-nos people make in regards to nutrition?
Number 1 is not listening to their body. I get everybody, like a lot of people like to jump on trend, and the nutrition trends change quicker than the seasons. Faster than you can change your clothes, there's a new nutrition trend out there. And I feel like we've really, a lot of the nutrition trends really divide people from just getting in touch with their body and how they're actually feeling. And so I find myself saying this to clients all the time: listen to your body. Your body's talking to you, because clients are like, should I be eating? Should I be putting off eating? Should I be fasting? I say, listen to your body. Your body needs to trust that when it sends you signals, you're going to respond to those signals, or else your body has to start guessing, and that's not a good place to be. So I would say that that's probably one of the biggest no-nos. Another one would be just not eating enough alive foods. I think that we're really in this place where like our protein is powderized, right? Our amino acids. We have a lot of options outside of actual food and nutrition in order to support our health. Although that industry as well has become a bit trendy. And so thinking about how can I serve my body with the food first, right? Not to say that medication is bad, not to say that supplementation is bad, and not to say that like protein powders are bad necessarily. It's just a matter of like, how can I support with the food first and then build into that or supplement that, so to speak, as opposed to making that the primary way that you're nourishing yourself, and then thinking about growing foods last. I would say that that's the second biggest no-no. What's the third? I feel like I'm on the spot because I had to come up with 3. I guess maybe focusing so much on the food and not as much on what actually makes the food work. And so a lot of people, they're eating right because they've been on their journey for a while. They're eating really good whole foods. They say that they eat really healthy, although they're not getting the results that they want. And so sometimes this is because there's some damage in the guts. We need to rebuild the microbiome, right? Sometimes it's because the liver isn't getting the building blocks that it needs to keep up with the detoxification process. And sometimes it's because people aren't sleeping enough to actually allow digestion and absorption to happen. And so kind of putting the pieces together, and this is the holistic in my title, is I put all of the pieces together, all of the major functions together, and get them working and coordinating with one another again, because sometimes they get so separated that it's just like none of the systems know what the other systems are doing. So we need to repair and rebuild that before things are going to work properly and you actually get the results that you're looking for.
Perfect. Thank you. Rosalind is asking about your workshop. Do you have details that you would be able to put in the chat?
Yes, I absolutely can. I just got those details figured out. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. So yes, absolutely. I can put details in the chat. It is on Eventbrite, so I can drop the link there. And I can also, it's actually, okay. So I wasn't necessarily planning on doing this, although there is going to be a code for that event to be absolutely free. It's only going to be up for like 4 days. So from January 26th to January 31st. And so I can drop that code in there as well for you guys. And so if you want to attend that, then you get to attend it on me for those 4 days.
Thank you. Okay, last question from Anne. Anne says, I struggle with eating healthy. I don't like to cook veggies and get tired of salads, struggle with fruit. I love flavor. What would you recommend?
Oh, I love flavor too. Okay, this is a huge common misconception. So a lot of people have this picture in their mind of if it's healthy, it's not going to taste good. If it tastes good, it's not healthy, right? And I like to just totally bust that up because there are so many incredibly like nutrient dense foods that are so delicious and mouthwatering. And so sometimes it's just a matter of popping outside the box on that, right? I say herbs and spices. I use a lot of herbs and spices. So like oregano, thyme, rosemary. I use cumin and turmeric and cinnamon. My client told me the other day, she's like, I feel like cinnamon is your hot sauce. You just put that shit on everything. And I'm like, yes, I totally do. So good for you. And so flavor it up with those little extras. And if you find that your herbs and spices don't have much flavor in them, it's probably because they're old. And so then that's a place where I really prioritize and make sure that I'm getting them from a good high quality store so that they actually have flavor. So play with the dill and mint and mix the flavors, like put cinnamon in your stir fry, things that you don't think will go together. Sometimes they do. So really just experiment and go for the herbs and spices because they really, they serve the body well. A lot of the herbs and spices that I just mentioned support a healthy immune system. They support a healthy gut lining, that they reduce inflammation within the body. And so there is a point to adding it, although they really burst out the flavor as well. So I would say that that's my biggest tip. And don't overcook your veggies. That's the other one.
So great. Thank you, Mandy, so much for sharing your story, for being vulnerable here with us tonight, and for, of course, giving us these beautiful tips. We are so grateful that you were our very first guest on Wellness Wisdom, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you, Mandy, for being here.